Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Java tutorial. It has been a little while, but we are back, and in this tutorial we are going to be talking about strings. So what is a string is what's going to be some of your first questions, and a string in its simplest form is just a group of characters. So we've already used strings actually, so I can show you a great example of this. So if we come into our printing tutorial that we did, this was the first tutorial we did, and you'll see we printed a few things here, and we opened some quotation marks, or what I'm going to call speech marks for the rest of these tutorials. We opened some speech marks, and then we put in some characters, and then we closed the speech marks. Now this is a string. So anything in speech marks you'll see is a string. If it's not inside a speech mark, it's not a string. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover a few things that a string can do. A string is a very interesting thing, really, and you'll find it everywhere in your code. Even in this main method that we have here, you can see there is a string, and then these. Once again, we're not going to talk about that, but strings are used everywhere. I'm sure you can think of many circumstances where you may want to, for example, display a string of characters on your screen, or have a button that has a name on it. Many different things like that. That's all going to use strings. So how do we declare a string? So firstly, strings are not primitives. Now in many languages you'll see that strings are primitives. For example, in our previous tutorial we talked about primitives, and you have int, float, double, boolean, char, etc, etc. Those are all primitives, but strings are not primitives. So they are actually something called reference types, or we'll stick with reference types for now, but they're just slightly different. So how do we declare a string then? Because we've only done primitives for variables so far. So it's actually exactly the same, but just slightly different. So instead of saying, for example, int, right, that's a primitive. You'll see it's all lowercase, because all primitives start, they are lowercase things. What we actually need to do is an uppercase S and then string. Now I know some of you are instantly going to try and do something more like this, right? You might say string str. Str is just short for string. It's a very common name for strings that aren't that important. You may try and do something like this, and that's not going to work because strings have to start with an uppercase S for your for the reference type, and all reference types that we're going to see in the future will also start with uppercase letters. So as you can see, if we put in an uppercase S in here, not like that, like that, you'll see that now compiles and we have no errors, which is great. And if we go ahead and just sout that, sout str, and give it a run, you can see it now says hello there in the console, which is great. It's exactly the same as our printing tutorial. Now, what if we wanted to make this string completely uppercase? For example, we wanted to print an uppercase version of whatever this string is. Remember, this string could be anything. It's a variable, so it could have been modified. It might not be exactly what we first assigned it to be. So whatever is in that string, let's say we just want to make that uppercase. And there is a very simple solution to this. In some, there are certain languages where you might have to loop over the string. We haven't covered loops yet, but you may have to iterate through every character in that string. We don't have to do that, luckily, and most languages nowadays you don't have to. But there is a great thing called a method that we can use on this string. So to call a method, and we will be talking about methods obviously in a future tutorial, but for now you'll just need to know that you type dot, and then you need to type the name of what you're trying to do. So we're trying to do 2 and then upper case, and then you need to add some empty double brackets on the end. And if we go ahead and run that, you see it now changes to, in all caps, hello there, which is great. So that just capitalizes our whole string. And you'll see, if, say, for example, these L's, and maybe this H and E there, if those were already uppercase and we run this, absolutely nothing changes because they were already uppercase, so it just ignores those ones. It doesn't need to do anything to them. And let's say now we wanted to make these L's and this HE into lowercase, because we want it to be all lowercase. We don't want, random parts of the string to be uppercase. So, as you can probably guess, all we need to do, and I'm actually going to do a second print statement for this, I'm going to say str.to lowercase. And as you'll see, obviously IntelliJ gives us something known as autocomplete for this, so that we don't have to necessarily remember all the names exactly. We can just give it a rough idea and it autocompletes for us, which is very helpful. Okay, so we've now covered converting it to uppercase, converting it to lowercase. What else can we do? Well, something we did actually talk about a few episodes ago, but I never really discussed in detail, is adding two strings together. So, if we try and do str, now let's say you wanted to append something to the end of that. So you wanted to say hello there and then a name, right? So this is as simple as you could expect it to ever be. It couldn't be simpler than this. All you need to do is just do a plus, and then you can add whatever string you want. So hello there, Derek. There you go. And if you print that, you see it says hello there, Derek, and obviously in a scuffed case. So you might want to do string.to lowercase and then hello there, Derek. See what that does, and that you'll see it's all lowercase, and then the Derek is not in lowercase because we're only doing to lowercase on this part of the string, this string variable, and not on the whole entire thing here. So this thing here of adding two strings together is actually known as something called string concatenation. I'm pretty sure I said that right, but essentially it's just adding strings together. But string concatenation is the sort of technical term for the act of adding strings together. Now, something I will briefly mention, and you shouldn't need to worry about this too much, but generally it is not a good idea to add strings together. And the reason is because you're actually constructing a new string each time you do that. And potentially, that could cause lots of problems, but you shouldn't really need to worry about that if you're just doing basic things. It's only if you're constructing a lot of new strings then it becomes an issue, but for now this is perfectly fine. Now, what else could you do with a string? Well, as I said, IntelliJ has autocomplete, so we can just do str dot, and then you'll see there is a bunch of what we call methods inside of here. So, for example, you could do what else do we want to do? There's tons of things you could do in here. I don't want to cover things that are too complicated. So, okay, for example, we could say replace, right? And we could replace, okay, let's say we wanted to replace the hello, and we want to replace that with hi. So instead of saying hello, it will say hi. Now, we can't do that with this string because hello is actually not the same as hello here. You'll see, obviously, this one has uppercase L's. So this isn't actually going to do anything because there's no matches for this. So something we can do instead is we can use what we had before, our 2 lowercase. So if we just copy that in, string 2 lowercase, replace hello with hi. Now if we just go ahead and we shout that, and if you run that, you now see it says hi there instead of hello there, because we've replaced hello with hi. Now I know this is obviously a big step up from just a simple thing like 2 lowercase or 2 uppercase, and you shouldn't worry about it too much, but essentially all you need to know is that this is how you can replace a string with another string. Now obviously in a future tutorial we're going to discuss exactly what's happening here. So why are we putting a comma here? What are these things inside of here? What are these little label kind of things that IntelliJ is putting in here? We're going to discuss these in a future tutorial, but for now you just need to know this is what we want. And make sure you do not write target colon and replacement colon. Just note that is purely IntelliJ adding that in. That's on top of it. You'll see that if I, for example, go ahead and copy this, and if I put down here in a comment that same thing, you'll see there is no target colon and there is no replacement colon. They are just fake. They are not there. Okay, so do not write those. You'll see that if I try to actually write those, target colon, not like that, but like that, you'll see that we get errors because that's not valid. So you got to make sure you don't do that. That is a very common mistake, so I just wanted to point that out. And obviously you can do anything else, as I was saying. So yeah, if you just go through and look, you will see a bunch of different methods in it, a lot of which are quite complex, and I'm not going to discuss any others other than maybe length. So yeah, let's talk about length. Okay, so let's say you want to get the length of this string, right? And what are we talking about when we say the length? We're talking about how many characters are in that string. So if we go ahead and count them, you'll see there is H, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have a space, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So if we do string dot length, and if we print that, you should see that it says 11 down there, and that is essentially the length of the string. This is once again something that's actually extremely useful, and yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about when it comes to strings for now. Obviously in future tutorials we're going to talk about slightly more complex methods with strings, maybe something such as split, which is a very interesting method. But for now, I think that will do us. So yeah, if you guys did find this tutorial useful, then please do be sure to give it a like and subscribe. If you really found it useful, then you can share it around, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Goodbye.